Here we are inside of Vocabulary Builder 1. This is the PDF that I would like you to download. You can see in blue we have the Spanish text, and below that we have a direct translation in English. So let's go through this first one here and see what kind of useful phrases and vocabulary we can extract from it. The first line reads, La vida puede ser difícil cuando eres un adolescente. Spanish loves to use the definite article, meaning the word the, much more than we do in English. So whereas English will have life can be difficult, Spanish will say the life can be difficult. And you'll see this happening a lot throughout the text. Next up, notice that it went with ser instead of estar. If we were to say in the present tense, it's difficult, it would be es difícil. So right away, you know that you're coming down on the side of ser. It's used again here with eres, because being a teenager or an adult or a child belongs to your identity. Vocabulary-wise, here we have the word for teenager, adolescent, adolescente. In the next line we have Tienes que soportar mucha presión social de tus amigos en la escuela. This verb here, soportar, is very useful because it can mean, as we see here, to deal with, or it can mean to endure or to put up with. So it's very versatile. And then we have the word for peer pressure, presión social. This is feminine, being an ION word, so we have la presión social, which is why we're having mucha to match it. Next up we have this word encima, which is really useful because it means on top of that. You can see again here in the English translation. So it's a very nice piece of glue. It continues with tus padres pueden ser imposibles porque están en una etapa donde creen que todavía son jóvenes. Notice that here we switched into estar with están because we're saying that they're in a stage. So this in a way is describing a location where they are. Están en una etapa. Another nice piece of glue is this word aunque, meaning even though, en realidad tienen más de 40 años y son realmente viejos. The translation here is even though in reality they have more than 40 years, meaning they're more or over 40 years old and are really old. Here we're obviously speaking from the viewpoint of a teenager. Next we come to this expression sin embargo. Now normally you'll see this described as however, but it can also be used for nevertheless. So we're right here in the translation. Sin embargo, están determinados creer que son jóvenes y a veces es embarazoso. Whenever you see examples of ser or estar being used, try to decide why the text is going with one rather than the other. There's always a reason. In this instance, we're saying they're determined to believe that they're young, and sometimes it's embarrassing. Now, we're not saying that they're determined all the time in everything. We're just saying that on this particular issue, they're determined to believe that. And so this is why it went with están. At the end here, we have the word for embarrassing, embarazoso. But you'll also hear or come across the word penoso. They are interchangeable. Both mean embarrassing. So let's highlight that as another piece of potential vocabulary for our list. In the final sentence, we have this word incluso, which is very, very useful. It's used, well, let's have a look at the translation. It's even more embarrassing. This word even in that sense in Spanish is incluso, so it's even more embarrassing. Es incluso más embarazoso. Cuando se comportan así en frente de tus amigos. So it's even more embarrassing when they behave in this way in front of your friends. So the verb comportarse means to behave, and here you can see it's reflexive. They behave themselves, se comportan, like this. And then we have in front of, enfrente de. So here we have another nice piece of glue. Continuing down, we have como adolescente. Notice that in English we would say as a teenager, but in Spanish they simply say as teenager. Here you can see one of those fidgety little bits where there isn't a direct translation between Spanish and English. So we have como adolescente, de repente descubres que la vida no es justa. Here again we see the definite article being used, que la vida. And we have this word here, de repente, means suddenly. It doesn't quite match with the English translation because we have you soon find out. But for me, the most natural way to say this in Spanish is that de repente descubres, you suddenly discover that life isn't fair. So justa is the word for fair. Notice this next phrase here, te toca soportar. Te toca means it's your turn. So it's your turn to endure unjust punishments. Punishments is castigos, and injustos would be unjust or unfair. So here we have more vocabulary with castigos. It continues with y no solo por cosas que hayas hecho. Here we have a gap in our Spanish. This is actually the past subjunctive, and we've only done the present subjunctive. So this is something that or a gap we will have to fill. The meaning here would be, and not just for things that you might have done, but also for things that definitely you haven't done. So, y no solo por cosas que hayas hecho, pero también por cosas que definitivamente no has hecho. It's quite a mouthful, that word, definitivamente, that definitely you haven't done. This next phrase is also worth adding to your list, por si no fuera bastante, meaning as if it wasn't enough. Instead of bastante, you'll also hear poco, so either way is correct. It goes on with también tienes que aguantar. Aguantar, again, is similar to soportar. They're almost interchangeable, meaning that you have to put up with. A tus hermanos pequeños, your younger brothers and sisters, y sus tonterías. Tonterías means their nonsense or their silly behavior, their silliness. We then have pasan su tiempo tratando de encontrar la manera de fastidiarte. So they spend their time trying to find ways to annoy you. Fastidiar is to annoy. So to annoy you, fastidiarte. Notice that in English we will say to find ways to pester you or to annoy you. Whereas in Spanish, the literal translation is they spend their time trying to find the way to annoy you. You see the little difference there again? This is what I mean by bits and pieces of moving parts in Spanish and where we tend to make the majority of our mistakes. Finally, we have dejarte en ridículo. So this means to make a fool of you, to leave you in ridicule. Dejarte en ridículo en frente de tus amigos. So in front of your friends. And this verb is nice. Estropear. This means to mess up. You can see it down here. And mess up your life. Y estropear tu vida. So what I've done here is given you an example of how we would take things from this text, bits of glue, phrases, and vocabulary. Now, your list will be unique to you because remember, you are taking what you feel will help your Spanish or help to push it forward. And for someone else who may be at a different level of Spanish than you in terms of vocabulary, they will have or extract a different list from this. So it's completely personal what you decide to take from these texts. From this, you should make a list, for example, like this one, where I've just extracted the useful bits from the first paragraph that I think will help to push my Spanish forward, things that I need to add into my Spanish. And this is the list that you will learn. Now, once you have done that, you'll come back and go in to only the English side, and you will try to translate this back into Spanish.